Nowadays, the guys winning the competitions get most of the notoriety. They're in the news because they're winning gold medals and beating other super tough guys. But I've talked about this in recent interviews. Do you think it's fair that those guys get all the press, whereas guys like yourselves, who are very talented and aren't winning big tournaments, are kind of in the limelight?
So, man, I notice with jiu-jitsu, it's very flavor of the month, right? There's a lot of guys who I could say their names now, and most people wouldn't even have heard of them. But in their day, they were gods. Literally, they were like the dudes to beat. And so it doesn't really bug me because, man, I'm in it for the long game. I'm still going to be teaching jiu-jitsu when I'm 50. Mm-hmm. And I think if you base everything you're doing around your competitive abilities, it's kind of short-sighted. So, and again, more power to the dudes who do well and are getting exposure, because it's tough, bro. Rising to the top of the jiu-jitsu world is really, really difficult. I know I tried it, I didn't make it, bro. It's very, very difficult. So I don't have anything against those guys, but at the same time, I don't really let it bug me too much.
What captivates you these days? What holds your interest in training and teaching?
Oh man, that's a really, really good question. The strangest thing for me with jiu-jitsu now is it's all a game I'm playing with myself. It's, there's an expression that yoga is a martial art that you do against yourself. And I'm starting to realize that jiu-jitsu is a martial art that I'm doing against myself, because as I'm getting a little bit older, and as I said to you earlier, like, all the guys are getting better. All the young kids, I got access to much more information and they're all tougher than they used to be. I find that it's easier and easier for me to make excuses to not train. And part of the martial art is, finding those thought patterns that make me force myself to put on my gi and get on the mat and train. And then while I'm on the mat getting beaten up by these young kids, it's like that, those thoughts go through your mind, like, man, I don't want to be here. Dude, all these people are watching. If I get tapped, everyone's going to say that dude tapped me, and then it's how to deal with that. That's, I find, is the most interesting aspect of my jiu-jitsu journey at this point. So I'm learning a lot about that.
When you're traveling, how do you choose which academies to go to? Some guys say, I'm only going to go to schools that are affiliated with the teacher that I train with. Other guys are trained with anybody. Some people exclude certain schools. How do you choose where you're going to train?
I wish there was some mystical answer, bro, but I literally just do a Google search in the place that's closest to where I'm staying. I'll go there. I mean, that doesn't always work out. I could walk in and, the people, I don't get a good vibe, and then I'll go to the next one down the list. But that's mainly how I do it, Jake.
You don't have to mention places' names, but is any interesting stories of any place you trained recently? Good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that recent, but a couple of years ago I went to one of the biggest academies in the world. And man, just got a bad vibe, bro. Bad vibe. Like, I remember my girlfriend was with me and I went to the bathroom and I came back and like all these tough dudes were kind of like walking up to her and like bumping past her and like just trying to hit on my chick, I just got into the bar and I was like, what's this about, dude? And then one of the other instructors there was super rude to me, like really rude to me, like bad attitude. And I just thought to myself, I mean, there's a million different academies. I don't need this. And I went to another academy in the same city, and the dudes were so cool, and I just thought to myself, okay, well, I know where I'm coming back, Yeah.
When you are teaching your seminars, what was the most common instruction or lesson that you give?
Jake, that's a very good question. I always try to mix it up, because for my own health, my own sanity, I can't teach the same thing more than a couple of times. It drives me insane. So I find that that's actually one of the things that drives my own progress in jiu-jitsu. Is I'm always wanting to learn new, fresh concepts and techniques to be able to teach them. Because it's very boring for me to teach the same stuff over and over.
And where do you get your inspiration? Are you watching tournaments and seeing what people are doing, or is it just something that comes out of your own training?
It's usually what people, like if I go to a place and a dude gets me with the same technique 2 or 3 times, and then I always think to myself, okay, there's something here, I've got to check this out. Or yeah, like whenever I go to one of these academies around the world and something will just stand out, something that their students do differently or better than anyone else. And that's usually what I try to get out of that. It's almost like mining gold, you know?
Yeah. That's great. And that's what I've seen in my own training as well. We've been to so many different academies, and you're right. Some academies will be better at one aspect than the other, and it's so fascinating picking that up. The art of jiu-jitsu is so deep.
It is, right? It's infinite.
Yeah. And your instructor is one of the best in the world, Roger Gracie. You mentioned he's going to be competing at the Worlds next year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He's been away for a while. He's been focusing on MMA. How well do you think he'll do upon his return?
That is a tough question. Wow. So I was discussing this with someone the other day. Look, age plays a role, obviously, and the reason it does is because certain attributes, as everyone knows, decline. And no matter what anyone tells you, attributes play a huge role in your ability to do jiu-jitsu. So I think that's the biggest thing, is Roger going to be able to deal with the speed and power of someone like Buchecha or Rodolfo or those kind of kids? And I think the answer is probably yes, because look at Shande, dude. Shande just won the World Championships at the same age as Roger is now, 34. And if anyone can do it, Roger can do it.
Yeah.
Because he really is something special. So yeah, I think so. I'm really, really excited to see him fight in the gi in a big tournament like that.
Yeah, and he looked great against Comprido.
Yeah, that was total abuse, basically. Yeah.
When I think of the moves that Roger is really good at, the mounted cross choke, choking from the back, I've seen Ali compete a lot more than yourself, and I don't see Ali representing Roger Gracie's, at least the form of Roger Gracie's jiu-jitsu. Do you think all people can do Roger's jiu-jitsu, or is it unique to his body type?
That's a very good question. A lot of the stuff he does is unique to his body type, in particular with the cross choke. The guy's got huge hands, bro. Huge, big, strong hands. And the strength and length of your fingers is a function of how well you can do that choke. There's no doubt about it. If your hands are small and weak, it's way harder to do that choke, Another thing is he's got a huge pelvis, right? And very flexible hips, so he can keep his knees really wide in mount and keep that pressure on, and he's got this huge shoulders and big upper body, so he can also use that driving pressure to smother you in mount. So I think a lot of Roger's game is actually quite specific to him and his body type. I mean, the guy was literally, it's like he was engineered in a lab to do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Having said that, I use a lot of his stuff myself and it works for me, but some of it, I just couldn't get it to work, so I had to say, okay, had to look at another way of doing that specific position.
The mounted cross choke in particular, how was that for you?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's obviously not as good as his, but I did get a lot out of the way he taught it. It helped elevate my ability to finish with that. Awesome. Definitely. Yeah. Cool.
Well, before we go on to the technique portion, what's new coming out from you? Any new products in the works?
Yes. Thank you for asking, Jake. We have a new video, which I'm sure we'll have on Buddha Videos. It's called The Rules How to Win at BJJ, and it's all about the rule sets of the different organizations, which I think is quite important, because one of the things we say in the video is how many times have you been to a football match or a baseball match and someone's explained the rules before? It just doesn't happen because everyone knows the rules, right?
Or don't know the rules.
Yeah, well, kind of you expect the players to know the rules.
The players do, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I meant, is so that's specifically for competitors. And also what we have is a new range of gear coming out called the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood Astrum range, which I'm wearing a prototype of at the moment, which I'm really excited about. It's all about the universe, and we have these pictures of galaxies and stuff sewn into the gis, and it's just a little bit out there, but I also think kind of cool. And then the last thing we have is a cool t-shirt based on the judo expression, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I'm hoping that's going to be on Buddha Videos as well. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Cool. Well, guys, if you want to check out any of Nick's new releases, the ones we talked about, check it out on Buddha Videos. Got all 3 of those new video releases available on demand. So if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you online?
JujitsuBrotherhood.com.
All right. Let's go to the technique part then.
Cool.
Nick, thanks for coming on for the technique portion of the show. You know, a common guard these days is De La Riva guard, and there's a lot of different passes, but I'm curious to see what's your favorite De La Riva pass.
Sure. I'm going to show you something that I was shown by what I consider to be a jiu-jitsu savant, a buddy of mine in LA called Tim Peterson. He showed me a fantastic way to deal with De La Riva using some modifications of the knee cut or the knee slice.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to share it with you guys.
Awesome.
Cool. So let's start in one of the worst case scenarios of De La Riva, in which he has your sleeve as well. So just like any other position where you find yourself on top, the first thing you always do is ask yourself, do I have balance? Is my base good? If the answer is no, then you get your base, and the way to do that usually is with a little bend of the knees and try to insert a bit of structure and create some posture. That's the first thing. Then I want to deal with my grips. If he's got grips on me, I'm one step behind. So I want to break his grips and take grips of my own. This cross grip can be difficult to break unless you know this awesome little trick, which my friend Nick Raphael in London taught me recently. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to grab inside my own cuff here. And then usually I can just break it with a nice powerful punching movement. But if he's super strong and I can't, I reinforce by grabbing my own lapel, and then I use my body to pop up, and it will break almost every single time. It's powerful.
Wow, Nick, when you put your hands in here and pull this tight, it just cinched up, and I almost feel like I don't want to hold on.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, Nick got it from Amari Bitech, who was the guy who won the first absolute of jiu-jitsu. So this is a legit technique. Wow. So it's here, break it. Now, once that grip's broken, I mean, you guys know that all fighting, especially jiu-jitsu, is about angles. So I know if Jake starts to use that De La Riva to start creating an angle on me, it gets worse and worse the more the angle becomes wide. So the way I can stop that or negate that to a small degree is to start pushing this knee out ever so slightly. I don't want to exaggerate anything, but I just do that, right? And that keeps me square with him. Then I want to set grips of my own. So the first one is here, reach up towards his collar with a thumb inside grip close to the shoulder joint. And this one I'm going to hold at the knee with the 4 knuckles, right? And really suck up as much of that cloth as you can. And then first movement is I wind him up by pulling his back off the ground. Remember the position of strength, guys. Elbow close to your ribs, that's where you're strong. Almost always when you have a grip engaged and you move your elbow to your rib cage, the situation becomes better for you and worse for him. This is a prime example. I don't even know mechanically why that becomes worse for you, Jake, but you can feel straight away, right? Yeah. It's not good for you right there. So this hand, driving down, I'm going to push his leg and step out to the side. And this fulfills one of the basic criteria for a good guard pass, or a good open guard pass, which is one of my legs is between his legs and one is on the outside, right? We've got that yardstick. So from here, then I want to create an angle in his hips. And the way I do that is, you guys see his hips are square, I want to camber them. I'm just going to shuffle to here, and that will bring his hips over to the side. The second I get here, I want to connect my knee to the ground. This is a very important little detail. If my knee is floating, there's a couple of bad things that can happen here. The first is, if he starts using this knee shield and pushing me back, I'm going to go. If it's connected and he starts pushing, it does nothing. That connection with the ground makes a big, big difference. The second is, Jake, you had a sneaky little move, the knee in the butt. Yeah. Sometimes if I'm here and doing the knee slice, if he hits me in the butt with his knee, it'll compromise my balance. If my knee is down and he does that, it does nothing. So get your knee to the floor as soon as you can. Now, once I'm here, my free hand is going to grab the free collar in line with the first hand, and I'm going to use that to cinch Jake's body in tight, right? Taking all the slack out. Any slack here helps him and hurts me, so I take as much of that slack out. Again, it's the same principle, elbows into the rib cage. And now we all taught, or I know I was taught, once you get into this position, you want to start freeing your ankle, so you start sliding your knee out. Now, this is not a good thing to do just yet. And the reason for that is a very important jiu-jitsu concept, which is called the spine organization or spine disorganization. Generally, the way this concept works is your shoulders and your hips, when they're pointing in the same direction, your spine is organized and your central nervous system is strong. it means your body is strong. If they start to twist away from each other, so your shoulders move that way and your hips move the other way, your spine becomes disorganized and your central nervous system is weakened. So you guys can see if I'm here and I slide my knee out here, my shoulders are pointing that way and my hips are pointing that way. So I become weaker, right? More vulnerable to sweeps and counters from Jake. The way to avoid that is before I slide my knee up, I step this foot up close to his head. When you watch when the Mendes brothers pass, that's one of the first things they always do, is get as much of their body close to his head as possible. So by doing that, when I slide my knee, my hips and shoulders stay in alignment and they stay organized. I'm still strong. If your ankle comes out now, great. If it doesn't, you can give it a little kick to pull it out and it frees. And now this is a cool little detail. From here, I want to turn Jake's hips the other way, but I want to do it without disorganizing my spine. So I don't want to step back like that. Instead, watch. The toes of my bottom foot bite into the ground, and I use my butt to turn his hips the other way. From here, the last little detail that helps me a lot is I put my elbow on the ground there, and then I can square up. With the elbow on the ground, it's easy to just tuck under and get that underhook to consolidate the side mount.
Wow, that was a lot of detail.
Thanks, bud.
Most interestingly, that grip break was.
It's power, yeah.
That was a very uncomfortable feeling when you had the grip secured here.
It works very well. I really like it.
Can we go through that one more time?
Sure, bud. You want me to speak or just go?
Briefly.
Okay. So here, De La Riva guard. Worst case scenario, he's got the grip. I want to break it, so I reach into my own cuff. I grab my own collar and pop it off. Then I want to square my body up, so I point my lead knee ever so slightly out. I set my grips, same side hand as the De La Riva hook, reaches in and grabs here, close to his shoulder. Other hand grabs at the knee, 4-finger grip, sucking up all the cloth. Then I'm going to wind him up by pulling my elbow to my rib cage and clear this leg by pushing down and stepping over. Once I'm here, I want to camber his hips and I shuffle to do so. The second that's happened, very important, I put my knee on the ground to create a solid connection and save myself from his counters. Once I have that, second hand takes the free collar. I wind him in again with that, taking out all the slack. Then I want to step my foot close to his head before I slide my knee out to free my ankle. Once my ankle's free, I use the hip movement to rewind and turn his hip the other way. Then my elbow hits the ground and I can square up, pummel for the underhook, and get my control.
Last time, no talking?
Sure. Our teaching's hard.
Awesome stuff. Thanks so much. And thank you guys for watching This Week in BJJ.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that interview and technique by Nick Grigoriadis. You know, every time I travel to another academy, I come across guys that thank me for putting out the show. It's certainly a lot of work, but we enjoy doing it, and I hope you enjoy watching it as well. If you do enjoy watching it, please click the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Leave a comment if you're so inclined. All those things help us stay motivated to keep pushing the show out there. On next week's episode, we're going to have Adam Redzovic. Adam is an instructor out of Chicago, and he has a unique system of escaping side control, and just an all-around interesting guy. So stay tuned for that on next week's episode of This Week in BJJ.